Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first community self-healing training. My name is Jona Bryndis. I'm an energy healer, energy coach, and answer all your questions in regards to self-healing, what we can heal, what we can't heal, and how we should approach this. And I will pick up on one subject that is very much on my heart right now because I work with this a lot, and that is how we can self-heal our personal physical condition, our health, how what we can do to move into self-healing if we feel that our immune system is low, or if we feel that we're sick, or even if we feel COVID sick, if we got diagnosed positive, what these things are that we can do. Yes, welcome. This is a new format here. We haven't had this in this way before, although from my end, it feels like I'm really talking about the same thing over and over again in a good way. So this is open for the public here. Those of you in our Sacred Self-Healing community are used to this kind of talk. It's a call-in talk, but other formats that we have, the live streams on Facebook and the webinars. So we do daily SKYPE meditation. So there's a lot of different ways how we're trying to get this info out. And what is this info? This info is about self-healing and how we can empower ourselves to step up and take charge of our own health, of our own relationships, maybe our financials, depending on what we are experiencing sort of as the most pressing part in our life. So the thing that is unique about energy healing and how I get to this kind of public training, if you will, is that when you look at things from an energetic perspective, which is basically a more holistic perspective, you recognize that our health, our wealth, our love, our relationships, that those are a mirror of another. You begin to see how they're all connected. And eventually we all realize that, that there are many internal, many external things that influence our state of well-being, our state of fulfillment, our state of happiness. And that there are things we can change, can heal, and maybe that there are things where our own inner power to heal something might be limited. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about today. I will let myself guided by your questions. So I really want, I don't want this to be a lecture, guys. I do all kinds of lectures and trainings. This is really for you to ask questions in regards to everyday situations and the application of self-healing. So the main objective here is to shift your awareness into a more empowered place, not undifferentiated, always obviously with the adequate questions. And I want to invite you to ask lots of questions, also to question things, not to just take my say-so, to ask questions in regards to how you can verify this for yourself. So that would be my sort of plea to you, that you don't just take things, that you actually investigate them for yourself and verify them for yourself. Self-healing is a lot about this own inner experience that we have. So if you don't have any questions up front here, I know that it's often easier to come up with questions as the discussion is going. I want to take the topic of physical health today and just talk about some of the things that we can do to feel stronger, to maybe prevent sickness. I'm not a medical doctor, so obviously you're going to have to discuss any kind of changes that you want to do that have to do with physical manipulation with your medical professional. But the cool thing about self-healing is that it, for the most part, doesn't actually involve any physical manipulation. What I'm trying to get at here and trying to increase your awareness for is that there's a lot of things that we can do with remembering what it actually is that we can change, that we can heal, all right, and that there's a lot more than we think there is. So when it comes to healing altogether, not the woo-woo healing or anything like hands-on or not even remote healing, anything in this way, when it just comes to the healing of a certain condition, all right, then there's always two major components to that. There's one thing that triggers it, all right, so in regards to our physical health, it can be an injury, it can be a virus or a bacteria, it can be a certain deficiency that we have, and then there's the condition, sort of the breeding ground, okay, the milieu that it meets us at, just because it's flu season doesn't necessarily mean we get sick. Just because there is a pandemic right now doesn't mean that we have to get sick. Why is that? Why do some people get sick and some people don't? And here, especially with the COVID virus, we have a situation that has that shows a lot of asymptomatic people who test positive but actually don't really have a lot of symptoms. And what determines this? So there's a huge race out there in the medical research community to answer all these questions, and I'm not going to pretend that I know all these questions, but there are some things that if you look at these two aspects of what can actually set a system out of balance and make it sick, okay, our body. If you look at the outer and the inner, so the inner condition and the outer trigger, all right, then there clearly is something that you can see here, namely, you cannot always prevent the outer trigger, right? I mean, we can do social distancing, we can wash our hands, we can go out in the sun more, we can, sort of work with those things that we've been told that sort of reduce the viral count here in our environment, such as face masks and so forth. That is a sort of minimizing of these outer effects. But when it actually comes to what is in our hands, what we can take charge of, then that is the condition of our own body, the condition of the state of our own system. All right. And that's what I wanted to discuss with you today. Okay, how you can change your condition. And when I mean condition, I don't mean good or bad condition. I just mean sort of the breeding ground. What is the overall condition that you are providing for your own system to stay in balance and in health? And when it comes to our physical health, guys, there's some very, very clear answers in that have to do with what I've addressed in the past as high vibrational living, high vibrational lifestyle, is that you make sure that everything that you put into your body is of a certain quality, that you reduce or minimize contaminants, that you sort of work with your body, right, that you keep your pH level in a certain range so that it doesn't become too susceptible. So there are some things, pieces of knowledge here, all right, that one needs to educate oneself about, like as in like, okay, what kind of foods create a condition that makes my immune system more susceptible, and what kind of lifestyles, make my body stronger or make my body weaker. Okay, those kind of things can all be read, and you can educate yourself about this on the internet. I want to address specifically here what a negative and a positive condition is for something to actually take a grip, okay, in your body, be it a virus such as, the COVID-19 virus, or, any bacteria or inflammation or infection. Okay, what are the conditions that make us susceptible for these imbalances. Okay, so disease is really defined as an imbalance. Okay, so in that you can already tell that one of the conditions that we need to aim for is balance and harmony. And how can we go into more balance with our body? There's some fundamental things that we all know. We have to eat, we have to drink, we have to sleep. But we also know, and this is now the holistic component of that, how emotions can affect our body. And this is very, very visible right now, how negative emotions, especially fear, can impact our physical, state. Our mental health, and emotional health has a lot to do with the internal balance. And as a consequence of, say, like a deficient or imbalanced or dysregulated emotions, it can make us sick. Who of you guys has ever been sick as a result of, like, say, going through a heartbreak or going through a really sort of stressful, emotionally stressful time? I mean, we all know that stress and pace and all that creates or can create conditions that make us more susceptible to disease or physical imbalances. But yes, there's a lot of you guys. Who of you have noticed? Has any one of you noticed the severity of how something can impact you? Like, say, lifestyle or foods, emotions, thoughts, or social conditions. Yes, Cindy, you noticed that how emotions are going through something emotionally stressful, that it blows out your immune system. Yeah. What do you think, guys? What do you think is the most impacting on your physical condition when you go through stress at work, when you go through money problems, when you go through, some kind of deeper spiritual process, when you go through emotional problems, relationship problems? What do you guys think? Let us all know here. We have this chat. We can all see you guys. Be cool if you turn on your video camera or speak into the microphone. Yeah, no, this is interesting. Cindy is commenting here. So when you're in a bad emotional situation, you also eat crappy, and that then makes it worse. So that's interesting. Yes, you look for comfort food. I'm guilty of this too. At first, I deprive myself of food and don't eat anything, and then I just eat everything that I can get into my hands. And either way, it's very imbalanced. So when I'm emotionally imbalanced, I get very easily pulled into physical imbalance. Who of you has noticed
And
how the mind? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I, yeah, I notice when I'm like, it can also start on the physical. Like if I'm like physically not balanced, like if I haven't eaten or sleep, or if I'm overactive, then it will pull the emotional in, and then it's just a chain reaction. So it can be from any angle, right? So yeah, it's just,
So it's all connected. Is that basically what you're saying, right? I mean, it's
it,
like maybe it starts in the physical first, and I've seen this with a lot of people that I work with. Their bodies get a little tired through whatever, and then their emotions go low, and then they're starting to question themselves, and oh my God, and then there's like this total panic. This is like total sort of black swan event, perfect storm, right, in your system. It's like, like a cascade, like a domino, and all of the sudden, within 2 days or so, you find yourself from hero to zero, like you doubt that you could ever be healthy again, and it's all over now, right? Yes, eating and dragging this out for many days, obviously, chronic conditions are, they're called chronic when they last more than 2 months. Yes, we all get run down. Yes, domino effect, exactly. Yes, Janet, you've noticed that with a relationship, when there's a conflict in a relationship, it throws you really out of the present and makes your body shake almost. So yeah, there are some things obviously, and what you're responding to here, Janet, is something that a lot of people know as trauma response. So there can be something in our life like a conflict or confrontation with another person or family or something that triggers something beyond what is aware to us, okay, and puts us into a place of total shutdown or wanting to run away or not being able to respond at all, or like literally sort of crumbling into powerlessness. Yeah, when it's that of an extreme reaction, then it's usually that some kind of trauma spot in us got hit. Okay, and then we
You know
need
what
to
though,
really work with
today,
this.
Jona,
Yeah,
I'm in the dark, that's why my camera's off.
yeah.
I did go through an email conflict that I noticed when it had been kind of resolved. Like it kept hitting me all day. I was like, I kept trying to be like, no, I'm not going to get in this conflict. But the person actually sort of walked through it, and it allowed me to go, oh, I kept trying to flight. You know, I really saw what we've been talking about, really like straight on. And actually, though, I think the situation shifted because I've had this education or something. It's very interesting. It actually went much smoother with all these new tools, or with all these tools put in place. So it was really cool. I was like, oh, I tried to flight, but we actually walked through it and it worked.
So you notice that if you can get past that initial trauma response, that
Yeah.
you can actually change something, that it's just maybe for how long, Janet? I mean, this is interesting. How long did you feel stunned or sort of caught in that initial reactivity? What
Oh,
would you
about
say?
6 hours. 6 hours today of trying to
Well,
put it on and saying, okay, I'm just gonna put the email in the trash. I'm going to let them be upset about whatever they're going to be upset. But they kept coming back to me with wanting to discuss it. And so I said, okay, Janet, here we go. So I did my best and it actually worked. But it did, it kept popping up. I could feel the vibration of the person who is, like an hour away. I just knew, I was like, oh, they responded to the email. I have to face up to it. But it, would keep popping in like over 6 hours.
okay, if we take this as a sort of a lesson here for you, Janet, okay, then what I'm hearing you say is that sometimes, especially when it's when some kind of sort of trauma spot in us gets hit, right? We will feel this initial, and it's often a physiological response, right? We feel this in our body, and it kind of does something to us. If we just breathe through this and allow ourselves to experience ourselves to actually being able to survive it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we can actually begin to access our own, well, a resolution or decision making powers, right? It's just that we can get stunned for a moment, and this doesn't mean that we are completely powerless. It just means that we've hit a spot here, that obviously triggers a very strong reaction in us,
Yeah,
but
it was like
that we can
this
get
thing
past it.
about being accepted by people, and which I thought I had kind of brushed off, but actually I think through all this work of becoming, like wanting to be a better person, or all this, uh, it's actually sinking in further and helps me. Well, oh well, this, I didn't even know. It was a little bit confusing, but I do
Right.
have to say
I
also
mean, when
was. There were so
Janet.
many I've eliminated so many coping things from my
Mhm.
life. like I didn't go to food. Like I've already worked through that. Not to say anybody else who does is bad, but it's possible. I'm just saying, wow, I used to go to food to deal with this kind of thing, and I just had to stand in it. So that was a great outcome from the experience
I
as
think
well.
I think that's a really positive message to everyone. Everybody. I mean, I happen to know a little bit of the backstory. You know, your backstory here, and obviously there are some very disturbing things that you have to deal with right now. And the fact that you could actually get yourself to breathe through it and see beyond it, and not, you know, go to what you called old coping patterns, right? How you would normally do this, that you felt empowered enough to actually work your way through it is huge. So this is really important for someone who is in a place, whatever the problem is, whether it's a physical problem or a relationship problem, okay, that there is a way to work through this. We just need to find that spot in us that can access that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Janet, for sharing. Becky's asking what the difference is with chronic issues versus temporary issues in relation to our emotions. Now, this whole, and some of you know this, we just have a series of emotional processing training. So we just had one training in regards to emotional processing, and when it comes to, like, you know, chronic emotions, I mean, you can't really say it's a chronic emotion. Okay, I mean, you know, it's being tired chronic, you know, I mean, yeah, you know, you have to sleep from time to time. That's not a chronic condition, but the same with our emotions, or maybe thinkingness, right? You know, it's only when it's out of balance, or when it is not processed correctly or not regulated correctly. So it's very difficult to answer this, Becky, in regards to, I know, what what is classified as a chronic emotional issue. Okay, when I look at this from a self-healing perspective, then to me, basically, you know, all problems that people have in their lives are a mixture of chronic emotional and mental imbalances. Okay, now throwing in the physical imbalances, because physical imbalances can also lead to emotional and physical and mental imbalances. So this one is hard to answer. I would say that if I look at the definition of what sort of signs of unprocessed emotions and you know, dysregulation and emotional dysfunctions is, that you know, if you experience sort of the same intense emotions over and over again, so repeatedly, and if you feel out of control, and if that's really sort of inhibiting or impacting your life in a negative way, I guess then we could speak of a sort of, I don't even like the word chronic here in this, but we are then speaking of some of an imbalance, all right, that needs to be addressed on an emotional or mental level. It's, you know, if you take conditions such as anxiety or depression, you know, grieving and depression, for instance, okay, can feel and look very similar, but can have very different reasons. Okay, and grieving is a very healthy process of you know, getting through the loss of something, right? Like, say, you know, at the end of a relationship, or at the, you know, loss of a loved one, or even the loss of hopes and dreams. Okay, it is a very healthy thing to go through a grieving process with that. And this might feel and look like from the outside like a person is going through a bit of a low, a bit of a depression, right? And this might last more than 2 months. It depends on what it is, right? I mean, I don't know, guys. I mean, the loss of a loved one, you know, what does society give people? I mean, I'd say years, you know, to grieve the loss of a loved one. It only is a problem really when it begins to impact the person in a way that they cannot really function, or when they cannot uphold relationships, or interact with the world in the way that they want. Okay, so here again, the definition of what is chronic, okay, is difficult with emotions because it depends on the person's situation. This is where mental health counselors, obviously therapists and coaches come in, because you know, whether or not this is actually a chronic imbalance, or whether, you know, you just you know, having to process something all the way to the end, right? That cannot be determined without actually looking at your whole entire situation. But let's make a more clear example here. If you are a person, and this is something that I experience quite a bit here in my practice, that has very dramatic relationships, very exhausting, very depleting, yeah, over and over and over again, okay? And it doesn't matter if this repeats within, you know, 3 months or 3 years, but if it keeps repeating over and over again, and there is a pattern there that is obviously either sabotaging or degrading or defeating, or, you know, really impacting the person, okay, then it's not really something that we would call a chronic relationship problem. We would call it more like, you know, there are some patterns, some unconscious patterns, okay, that this person needs to become conscious of, okay? And then, you know, you can approach it in, of course, the physiological way, that would be to check on, you know, neurotransmitters, hormones, and so forth, and nutrients. You can check it, you know, in emotional, you know, how much of my emotions do I actually process and express, how my emotional hygiene, right? What's the state, what's the condition of my emotional hygiene? Or do I hold everything, do I keep everything in, do I repress, or am I afraid to talk about my emotions, or am I limited in my vocabulary, you know, in my literacy to even talk about things? Or do I have some kind of mental, cognitive, intellectual components here that hold me from processing things, from healing myself? Okay, do I have an extremely strong sort of negative inner communication, negative inner self-talk? All right, or do I have sort of beliefs and mindsets? You know, no matter where they come from, this is then the part that needs to be investigated. You know, is this a conditioned, you know, is this a childhood thing, or is this something that I have sort of as a sort of self-defeating belief in my life, you know, because things went wrong over and over again, you know, then came to the conclusion, well, you know, what's the point in even trying, you know? So that is the difference between conditioned and, you know, sort of you coming to the conclusion that, you know, I mean, it's a form of conditioning as well, but it is more sort of the interpretation, you know, of what you do with your experiences, you know. And then of course there's also the whole layer of spiritual imbalances when a person feels the lack of connection with something, or, you know, with sort of a lostness within, okay, where there is no clear center point, or nothing really outside of oneself, okay, that could possibly say, like faith, you know. I say like faith because it's not always just faith, but faith, for instance, can carry people through a physical, emotional, or mental crisis, right? And it goes as far, you know, in energy work, we clearly see the need, okay, that there's an actual need in people to connect with something, all right? And that can be imbalanced. So for instance, if we try to connect only, that would be the imbalance, with things outside of ourselves, okay? That's where then our identifications and so forth come in, that reduce our ability actually to find connection within. And then, of course, we have this whole subject, this whole realm of the sort of a greater power, okay, the inner higher power, or the inner higher power, you know, like whether it is something like a divinity, or God outside of me, or God inside of me. the energetic point of view actually shows that the inner connection is the core of all, say, references for a person. It's kind of like the honing signal for everything. Okay, most people actually suffer from conditions, be it physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, without actually knowing what it could feel like. So a lot of people actually suffer from not having a really good sort of compass here as to what it could feel like if it was balanced. Okay, so that's sort of the theory or the hypothesis that I want to throw into, like when we discuss this conditions. Okay, that most people are actually not aware of what their conditions are. And why is that? Because we have a part in us, and that is a very cool part, that helps us to adapt and so forth, that allows us to cope with things. Okay, Janet mentioned this earlier, and that part can sometimes be so off that it sees something that, no matter how dysfunctional it is, as safe only because it's so familiar. There are conditions like physical conditions. I used to work a lot 25 years ago. I used to work primarily on the physical conditions and the nutrient aspect of healing. And there's an amazing thing that happens when you challenge a person who has, like, say, a bad diet, right? It's just let's just say bad diet, to refrain from that food for just a week, okay, and not even to eat overly healthy, just to refrain from certain things that are clearly sort of impacting that person's well-being. Or actually, my favorite is to motivate a person to just drink more water for a week, just 1 week, and see what happens. And besides some of the side effects of drinking more water, like the digestive system and the energy levels and being able to sleep better. And yes, thank you guys for demonstrating this, right? But to challenge a person who doesn't really do this, to change the conditions within themselves. And it's amazing what you hear, the stories that you hear. The number one thing that I heard after motivating a person to drink more water is, oh my God, I had no idea how thirsty I was. Okay, this is part of what I'm trying to get at. A lot of times we don't actually have, I don't know if you guys can hear this is rain in the background. We don't even have a good measurement for what it feels like if we were in more balance. Okay, so we have to first sort of get to the 0 point so that we can even measure this. A lot of people talk about more health, more spirituality, more emotional health, more this and more that, but I don't actually know what they are comparing this with. So I want to offer this this definition of healing for you here that helps to put this into perspective. Healing and self-healing. Self-healing would be the sort of self-motivated and self-empowered version of that, is the change of frequency from a lower into a higher state relative to the previous state. Okay, so someone who has a really, really bad diet, who doesn't change anything, but just drinks, like, say, 2 cups of water a day, will already experience this as healing to a certain degree, okay, because it will up the person's frequency. Now, in regards to some of the COVID information that is out there and that is still being researched, guys, there are some things that are quite clear. about this virus. And I want to help you to lose your fear. I want to help you to understand that even if you do test positive, that there's still a lot that you can do, all right? That you can influence the way it actually processes and works in your body, that you can influence the way you feel in this. And I don't know if we do have people here who have actually had to deal with COVID already. I would love to hear some accounts from you. You know, if you notice something there, if you want to share something with other people here.
Well, I can talk.
Well,
Okay, go ahead, Denise.
please go. Please, you
No,
Rick,
really.
please.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm currently positive right now, and I mean, it really hasn't been that big of a deal. I started really preparing back in February because I work in healthcare, so I kind of figured at some point in time I would come in contact, and I have numerous times. Yeah, I don't know, what questions does anybody have? I really, for me, it's been a little bit of a cough, a little bit of tightness in my chest, and that's really been about it so far.
What was the roller coaster that you went through? You know, as far as like what you could observe within yourself. I mean, you know, we all are, okay, we're sitting here, we haven't not tested positive, okay, and in our minds it's like, oh my God, if we get tested positive, it's the end of us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
no, not maybe you guys, but this is really what most people are,
Oh, yeah,
you know, spoon-fed with every day right now, that, you know, it's like, okay, if you know, the first thing I have to say to people always is like, COVID is not Ebola, okay? If you test positive on Ebola, an hour later you're dead, but COVID is not like that, okay? It's just, not just, it's very serious, it's very, very real. But what was, Rick, what went through yourself? Like, would you, oh yeah, I'm sitting in the dark here now, we have a power outage, guys, sorry for that.
Oh.
This is the last 2 weeks here have been like this, so computer's charged fully, so maybe we're lucky and the light comes back on. Just keep going. Yeah. Rick, I would be interested in feeling with you what this was like and what shifted in you in all these different ways.
Well, the course of events was kind of interesting because I 2 weeks ago I had a day where I just had like a really massive headache and no other symptoms, and I kept waiting, thinking, okay, is this, you know, is this COVID? Is this COVID? And I was checking my temperature and waiting for symptoms to appear. And at that point in time, what really was going through my head really had nothing to do with me. Even then, it was over a week later when I tested positive. I've never really feared this from the standpoint of me getting it and what might happen. But I'm a physical therapist and I do home care, and every single one of my patients is, you know, very high risk. So for me, there was this feeling of like guilt, definitely guilt, no question about it. Did I expose someone else? And it turns out that I was exposed by one of my patients.
Right.
So, you know, not that that necessarily makes anything better, but the whole escapade of sort of going into this feeling of guilt really was uncalled for. I at first I don't know if the headache even has anything to do with it or not, because it was about a week later when I was cleared to go back to work. I had no symptoms, nothing. And then 2 days after I went back, then I began to have a little bit of a cough, a little bit of a sore throat. And so I said, okay, I'm gonna get tested, because I wasn't tested the first time. I had no symptoms, and the test came back positive. And at that point, I was kind of like, okay, you know, that's fine. Now I know I'm not working. I'm not going to give it to anyone who's at risk.
So the guilt part was not there anymore, right? Because you'd already stayed home at that time, at that point.
Yeah. So that was over, and then, you know, since then I've just sort of been like fielding calls and texts from people who are thinking like I should get my affairs together because I'm going to split the earth plane, and I'm sort of like, you know what, I'm watering the plants and I'm doing. It's really hasn't been a big deal, but people are kind of like reaching out, you know, like I'm suffering in some way, and I really haven't gone through all that much. You know, not to downplay it, because for some people it is a big deal.
Yes. Yeah.
But I very much sort of know how to take care of myself, and so I've been doing that all along. And so it really hasn't been an emotional roller coaster. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the general population, and of course my patients in home care, you know, they're terrified. I mean, absolutely terrified. They just kind of feel like if they get it, it's over.
That's yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
And
good to see your face, and it's good to know that there is a chance we could all survive it.
yeah, you might make it. You might make it.
we will laugh at, okay, I again here, and thank you, Rick, for pointing this out.
You're
And
welcome.
you are a healthcare professional, so this is not to make fun of it. This is to make light of it. Okay, what we really want to transport here is that a lot of it also has to do with the attitude towards ourselves. Rick, one thing that I found quite interesting that you just shared is that people responded to you. They reached out to you like as if you were going to die. Is that what you were saying, that they were like sort of trying to like say their last goodbyes to you in an exaggerated way? But
well, not necessarily saying their last goodbyes to me, but just reaching out as if like, wow, like, are you okay? Like,
okay.
we really hope that you make it through this.
Oh.
And so I've heard from some. It's interesting. My younger brother and I don't necessarily see eye to eye, and we don't really talk very often. And I've had like 4 or 5 texts from him in the last few days. You know, just checking
Okay.
in on me, which was interesting. You know, that was definitely interesting. But sometimes those types of sort of reconciliations happen when one of the two is on their deathbed.
Right. Well,
So
so they don't have to
I'm
wait that long.
right. So it's happened potentially decades before it would have happened otherwise. So yeah, it's interesting.
Rick, would you like to share some of the self-care and self-healing routines that you are applying to
Yeah, and
get first-hand account here?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, back in February when sort of this whole thing started, my diet's always been good, you know, recently, at least the last 12, 15 years. And I then in February decided that I was going to supplement somewhat, and I started supplementing with vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc. Um, I have a multivitamin, but I wasn't always like taking it every day, and you
Uh-huh.
know, things of that sort. But then I decided, okay, I'm gonna, you know, do that every single day. And we've always juiced 2, 3, 4 times a week. Recently, since the positive diagnosis or positive test rather, I've juiced every day. Just to give myself, you know, just definitely what I need to get over this.
To
Um,
support your body, like to even
yeah,
though that you haven't been sick, right? I mean, and you're not this
right.
sick type of person, right? I mean, you didn't do this because you were like afraid, you know, that you're gonna die. You did this just to support your body, right? In
Yeah. I
the
mean, the whole direction that I come from is love, you know, not from
Mhm.
fear. And I've just been making sure that every day I'm outside for. I have the best tan in my life probably, because I make sure that I'm outside every day several times, and it's been a tremendous heat wave here in Virginia. So I get out maybe mid morning, late afternoon, every day to get some sunlight. Um, and I just naturally eat a lot of foods that boost the immune system and things of that sort. And then each of these days that I've been home, I've been making sure that I'm meditating and resting a bit, taking a nap, and trying to get my family to pamper me. But they're not really going for it because I'm not really that sick. But just really coming from a point of love, you know, taking care of myself,
Mhm.
not from fear that something's going to happen, but just from the angle of I know my body can handle this. I'm just going to provide it with what it needs to move past it as quickly as possible.
That's a very beautiful attitude. And let me just summarize what I just picked up from what you suggested, sort of already preventatively, okay, just as a sort of self-healing support. You have been making sure that your body has enough, say, vitamins, okay, so vitamin C and vitamin D, you pointed out here, zinc to help your body to absorb the vitamin C more or better. And you have been spending more outdoors. You mentioned sunlight. Those are routines that I would strongly want to underline here as preventative self-healing measures. Okay. Then, of course, and this is a big part. Really, this is the reason for these community self-healing calls that I would like to do regularly here, is to come or to adopt the attitude of coming from a place of love, of self-care and self-love, you know, where you pay sort of loving attention to your body and really see it as the part of you that has to sort of physically, right, on this dense physical level, deal with all of this, right, to support it, just like how we would support, you know, I mean, we would even support our car, you know, if we go on a long road trip, right? We would put some good oil in there, and we would exchange the wiper fluids and stuff like that, right? So this is the kind of attitude, not to minimize or to degrade the physical body to a machine, but you know, for you it was a part of your expression of self-healing and self-love to support your body optimally. And here you are now going through COVID, and you're still smiling, Rick, and you're coming to a place here sharing with other people. And this is, I think, the best testament, you know, that you are in this place of sharing and really sort of spreading the message that people don't have to go into this passive or self-defeated place. I really love this. Thank you so much for sharing this here with all of us. It's very, very helpful. Okay,
You're welcome.
to hear the sort of firsthand testimonies. Wonderful. Thank you, Rick.
You're welcome.
Denise, I think you wanted to share something as well.
Yeah. I mean, I was able to get a schedule for the test until next Wednesday because there's a high demand right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just doing the same, taking care of myself, lots of vitamin C, like you suggested, sunshine and outdoors. And I don't know, even though it's been uncomfortable because there's all these physical symptoms, I feel very free and I feel like this is a purge, like a cleansing, and I'm going with it. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just, it feels very opening, like in many different levels, because it's giving me, I don't know, the freedom to be home and to be with myself and to nurture myself. And yeah, so that's
From
what
an
I wanted to
energetic,
share.
Denise, from an energetic point of view, is there a component here? I'm wondering, okay, because I'm convinced, you know, I went through the symptoms of COVID myself already. I don't have proof because I never got tested, but I would love to hear this from somebody who's currently going through this. Is there a component that actually strengthens you now that you're actually facing it and dealing with it?
You know, Jonah, I feel like it is, because, like, I mean, like that. What I'm with, there's an opening, like, basically like a shedding. You know, like shedding, like it's been like,
Shedding.
like you know, like a snake. It shades the skin. It's sort of like that. Like on my first night, which it didn't even occur to me it could be COVID. Like I experienced guilt, like Richter, and a lot of fear because I didn't want to call in sick. And my, you know, I was throwing up. Like for me, it's been very, um, my belly. It's been like that's been,
Digestive. Mhm.
yeah, digestive.
Yeah,
And
20 to 27% of people actually experience digestive symptoms.
yeah, But then it's been like the first couple of nights I had lots of dreams, which I got in like 3 times in my life. When I get when I got in really sick in the past,
Uh-huh.
uh, that sort of like I start witnessing my belief system, and I can see my cells, where in the cells it is, and it's sort of more like a witnessing of like how unhealthy and like how insane, basically that will be the right word, how mad it is, like just go in life and never stop. And then like witnessing my own inner darkness and witnessing my own, like my own stuff, and my like my physical, but also my belief and my emotional. And so I think there is um, energetic component to this.
Thank you, Denise. This is, really cool to feel into this, the the process of going through something, okay, when we actually face a deep-seated fear. Okay, I remember feeling the same way. I literally had like an hour where I thought, okay, if this is it now, if this is the end of it, okay, I might as well go outside, go through the woods and enjoy this one last time. And as I was doing that, as I was going outside, and that's why really going out in the sunlight for COVID in particular, I'll summarize this for you here at the very end, is very, very essential, because it's a virus that's super sensitive to sunlight, especially the vitamin D that is produced in our skin when we are out in sunlight. And I felt an immediate boost of energy and an immediate increase in well-being that gave me hope. Okay, so some of this experience, this inner experience, when we go through not just COVID, any kind of sickness, all right, is the experience of being able to get through this. And the message that I want to transport here is that the way we experience it, and maybe also the symptomology, how long it takes and how bad it gets, right, that this can be determined by our inner attitude towards ourselves. When we are at this point that we tested positive for COVID, then this is external, right? Now it's a fact. We cannot really change that anymore, right? But we still can change a lot on the inside. We can change the way it goes for us, whether we go into this total desperation, whether we go into passivity or total sort of giving up our power, or if we actually understand that this is an opportunity for us to connect more deeply with ourselves. So it's wonderful to see you two here. I don't know if we have someone who is or was sick with COVID and has had very different experiences. Then please come forward, and maybe we can talk about that if it gets, really bad. All right. But even then, it's best to come, and this community training call here can also be a platform for this, to actually talk about these things and help our emotions to process better, so that the rest of our system can be strengthened. Okay. Yes, and Sheila's commenting here as well. It seems like a diagnosis of something big always has an opportunity to show us how to reflect inward. Yes, it is, oftentimes this is, the statistics clearly show this, a pivotal point in a person's life when they get diagnosed with something, or not just a physical condition, but when you like literally forced to face something, as opposed to being in the fear of it coming. So there is something very empowering about actually going through something and experiencing ourselves to become resilient. It connects us with our own competence, and this competence is self-healing. Okay, we call this self-healing. It's nothing mystical. It is the attitude towards ourselves, the relationship towards ourselves, that expresses in our ability to move ourselves, to shift ourselves out of a lower state into a higher state. And sometimes it is a gradual process, not like from like dead sick to like, oh, I'm healed, in 10 minutes. Sometimes it takes a day or two or three, but there's something extremely powerful, and guys, you know this, my background is biochemistry. There's something so powerful about a person's self-healing ability, is that the pharmacology is really at a loss. What pharmacology knows about removing symptoms and helping a person's body to heal is maybe 5%, okay, of the capacity of what the human consciousness can do in form of its own self-healing. So the ultimate medicine is always the medicine that a person can activate within themselves. But it does, of course, help to investigate, to analyze what the trigger is, what the condition is, right? In this case, COVID, as this was our subject here of today's self-healing training call. And there's specific aspects about COVID, obviously not all researched yet, but some aspects that were very clear right from the beginning. And that is, the origin, maybe not the origin, but we do know that there is an animal here on this planet that has this SARS-CoV-2 virus in its body, and that it never gets sick. Okay, and by investigating how this bat, it's a certain bat, okay, lives with it, provided very, very useful information, namely what is different in this bat's immune system, okay, that it doesn't get sick from it. Okay, and that's a very simple answer here. This species has extremely high levels of vitamin D and vitamin C in its bloodstream. And the one thing that's different with this bat is that this bat actually produces vitamin C. We cannot produce vitamin C in our bodies. We can produce vitamin D in our body, though. So that part of going out in sunlight and producing vitamin D, and there's been studies already that have proven that the vitamin D that we produce through our skin synthesis is, I forgot the number, but like 20 times more potent, okay, than the vitamin D that we can take, like say, through medical grade vitamin D supplements, okay? So the number one tip for prevention, for self-healing, and for lowering the viral count once we have been tested positive with COVID-19 is getting into sunlight. This is also one of the reasons why there seem to be differences in people's response to the virus. Okay, we see a lower health response, a lower sort of immune or decreased immune response in people with high pigmentation. Okay, so with people who have darker skin. Okay, and that's because the more protection the skin has against the sunlight, the less vitamin D is being produced. In other words, even a white person, if we go outside a lot and we're very tanned, okay, then the vitamin D production actually begins to reduce. So we have to stay out in the sun longer. Okay, so this doesn't mean that a darker pigmented person cannot produce enough vitamin D to beat the virus within its bloodstream, but this person would have to stay in the sunlight longer. Okay, so get as much sunlight as you can, even if it's uncomfortable, if you're already suffering from a fever or high temperature. Okay, then it feels very counterintuitive to go out into the sun. But that is one of the things that they actually found out by coincidence 100 years ago at this huge outbreak of the Spanish flu, when the field lazarets and hospitals, when they ran out of space and they had to actually put the patients outside, okay, in beds, that those who were outside in the sunlight healed 80% faster than the ones that were inside. So this is hard science here, guys. Sunlight helps with COVID-19. Number two, increase your vitamin C intake. Okay, so we can, of course, optimize our diet. And a lot of people believe that they actually get enough vitamins through their diet, but unfortunately the vitamin content of our produce has reduced so much over the last 30 years that it's almost impossible. I'm not saying that it isn't possible, but it's almost impossible. You would have to like literally juice all day long, and then you run into issues with the sugar and the salt, that you put, you ingest too much fruit sugar that then is counterproductive for your immune system. So vitamin C in supplementation to your normal good vitamin-rich diet, preferably in liposomal form. This is a specific type of vitamin C, not the ascorbic acid, guys. That is a pharmaceutical grade, like an artificially produced vitamin C that the body cannot actually recognize, and it really doesn't absorb 95% of it. So we will literally just pee it out. So liposomal vitamin C can be absorbed better, and then some of the minerals like zinc and also calcium help to increase the absorption. Not to get too technical about this here, but vitamin C and vitamin D ultimately through sunlight, but also in supplementation in severe cases. This is also hard science, guys. 90% of all severe COVID cases in ICU suffer from extremely low vitamin D levels. Okay, so COVID seems to deplete the vitamin D levels and vitamin C levels in us. And the good news about this is that even if you have the virus in your system already, if you increase, you just like literally, the way I seen this in an energetic way is like literally put yourself on a vitamin C and vitamin D drip, throughout the day, all day long. Okay, that's a very good prevention and also helps to reduce the viral count if it's already in your system. Number 3, drink lots of water, tons of water, guys. It helps your body to maintain its temperature, to regulate temperature, to regulate fluids. Fever is a good thing, guys. Okay, your body goes into an immune system response and an immune response here with high fever, and it's a good thing. It's only a bad thing if you don't drink enough water. Okay, so you need to be really well hydrated. It also helps in regards to the respiratory symptoms that you can experience with a COVID infection, where the coughing and all that is your body's natural way of trying to expel the virus. Okay, and if you're dehydrated, then it's a dry cough. Okay, if you cough and there's mucus coming out, that's a good sign. Okay, mucus is a combination of your first immune response and a good hydration. Okay, that's you want, like really sort of mucusy cough. Okay, because that shows you that this shedding that Denise mentioned, right, that this is actually, it's a clearing, it's a natural clearing process, but it can only work correctly if you drink enough water. Number 4 is something that most people, it's very simple as well. I mean, so far we've covered things that are practically free, don't cost anything or very little. Number 4 is just as simple, and that is to create a barrier, in your mouth. So contrary to public opinion, I'm calling this public opinion because it's not really science-based, COVID is not transferred by droplets only. Okay, they talk about aerosols, and that's correctly, but what does this mean? It means it's an environmental virus. It attaches itself to surfaces, and one of the reasons why we see this spike right now here in the northern hemisphere is because it's so hot outside, especially in the United States, that people stay in, caught inside in small spaces, and that the air conditioning, basically recirculates it into the air. Is there anything we can do about it? No, not yet. I'm pretty sure there will be new businesses that specialize on clearing all this and removing sort of residues of the virus. It stays active for at least 42 days on surfaces, but it gets less active over time. Okay, so there's nothing really, if you're asking me from a scientific point of view, to prevent exposure. But what you can do is, because the main entryway is your nose and your mouth, okay, is that you create a physical barrier. So the COVID the virus actually stays in the back of your throat, in the fold of the trachea, for 4 to 5 days before it is finished replicating and even entering your respiratory system and your bloodstream. Okay, so what you can do really is when you start feeling, beginning symptoms such as the ones that Rick described, a real strong headache or a loss of taste and smell, or yes, for some people it starts with fever right away. For some people it's just sort of a malaise or tiredness. Drink hot beverages. COVID is extremely temperature sensitive. It's very easy to kill it you can't really brush it away. It hides in that fold of your trachea where you feel this sort of raspy, dry tingle or a scratch in your throat. Okay, you can't reach that manually, but what you can do is you can flush it out with hot beverages. You can drink hot water, like the Ayurvedic traditions. Hot water with a little bit of lemon. It's fine. You can use salt water. You can use mouthwash, but in my personal experience, hot drinks like teas, herbal teas. You can go all the way to like drinking antiviral teas. There's beautiful tea mixtures. There's beautiful herbal essences that support your immune system and that can help you with this. So basically, what I'm suggesting is that you, for prevention, and if you get tested, that you adapt a lifestyle, like a habit of drinking hot beverages throughout the day. Now, some of my clients were really happy about this because they said, oh yeah, I drink coffee all day long. And that works too. But the problem with that is you also dehydrate your system a little too much. So I wouldn't recommend to use coffee for this or black teas, but natural, like not caffeinated teas, neutral teas, okay, such as chamomile or very mild teas, that just sort of help to flush it out. The other barrier is, to use the gurgling, to use the mouthwash or the salt water to actually kill whatever's in your trachea there, or in that fold of your trachea, at least before you go to bed, and in the morning. It's a bit of a physical barrier. I use a highly concentrated Japanese mint oil for that throughout the day, all day long. It's just something that helps you to stay at ease and to stay within your personal sort of comfort zone, that you can actually handle it. Now, the last thing I want to recommend here, the number 5 measure to prevent, to reduce the viral count and to help yourself with the symptoms, is homeopathy. Okay, there are some very promising studies out right now that show that specific homeopathic substances, which are derived from plants for the most part, in tiny little doses, that they seem very, very effective. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a naturopathic doctor, and you should of course ask your professional, but the most promising homeopathic remedy at this very moment is called Bryonia. This can be ordered. It's like, minimal. It's cheaper than vitamin C. It can be taken prophylactically, like to prevent, symptomology, to prevent COVID infection, but it can also reduce the symptoms of COVID in a very, very fast way. There are studies in India right now with 70,000 people that keep confirming this. So, yes, all that said, not to make any political statements here in regards to the validity of vaccines or anything like this. This self-healing community training call is to strengthen your awareness, or maybe also to educate yourself a little bit, to hear from others what works for them, and to feel empowered to actually take charge of your own health, be it physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, or energetic health. So much from my end here for this particular topic, guys. I want to do this at least once a month, but I do need more questions to keep sort of the subjects rolling. As I've mentioned, we can cover any kind of subjects here. The main emphasis on the practical application, okay, the translation into a practical life. not so much the theoretical part, but really like, what can we do? How can we approach this? So I want to thank all of you guys for sharing, for coming, for asking, for watching the video. It's been fantastic to be here with you, and please send me suggestions for topics, for questions, all right, and what you would like to be addressed here. All right, share this with your friends and family. This is non-political, non-agenda. It's really just about helping people to remember that they actually have this phenomenal self-healing power in them. Thank you so much. Yes, Janet is posting here a last minute response in regards to vitamin C. Yes, where it's found. One other thing that I do is I have urine strips. I test my urine, not every day, once in a week or so, but whenever I feel a little, and I can measure my vitamin C levels. I can measure my level of hydration, just to get a feedback from my body, just to connect with my body on that level. So if that helps, okay. Stay on it, guys. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Rick, for being here for other people and showing us, that it can be done. All right. Yes, I'm going to post suggestions here for you in the chat that you can use for the links as well. I have no particular brands, guys. This is not about selling anything. This is really just something where I personally get this. Okay, so if you guys have links for liposomal vitamin C, you can go to your health food store, Whole Foods, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, and whatever these brands are where you are at. And even homeopathic remedies can be gotten in places, local places. So this, I order everything online right now, but those are all easy things to get. Nothing special, nothing um, uh, woo-woo. Okay.
Jonah,
Yes.
do we have time for a question?
Yeah. Well, go ahead. I mean, I was going to say goodbye now, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, because now that this has been going on, I kind of did a little bit of research on my own, and I mean, these tips that you share have helped like tremendously. Like, thank you. But I was wondering because my majority, like my family and other people, they are using like Tylenol. No, which one is it? I don't know, like pharmaceuticals, right? Which is basically for cold and then anti-inflammatory, right? So I was wondering, like, I mean, do these, like the pharmaceuticals, do they have like a lot of, I mean, a lot of
You mean
side
for
effects?
prevention? They use this for
Yeah,
prevention? Okay, so
yeah,
this is not very smart because if you take medication, whatever medication it is, there's a physical manipulation that is taking place. It is actually disrupting your own self-healing at that moment. Now, if you are already suffering symptoms and you have fever and you have headaches and so forth, and you want a relief from this, then you can resort to them. But to take medication to prevent or to help yourself makes no sense, because your immune system needs to be in its full power. Okay, from a self-healing perspective, it makes no sense. You have to strengthen your immune system. Taking medication does not strengthen your immune system, it lowers your immune system.
right,
So that would
right,
not be advisable. Okay, even fever, if you have, and again, I'm not a medical professional, so please
right,
confirm all this. But if you have 103, 104 fever, it's okay to have that fever for as a grown-up, right? It's okay to have that for 3 days before you take anything against it, because that's really what your body does to expel, to shed, the virus. Now, if you're dehydrated and it makes you dizzy and you're starting, your circulation and so forth suffers from it, well then, it would still be best to increase the fluids, right? But if it's too late,
right,
then you might have to lower your fever, but all that really makes your own self-healing less effective. Okay, now that said, I'm not against medication. okay? But to take Tylenol or even aspirin preventatively has already been proven to be counterproductive. Okay, it's counterproductive because it does not, you know, it's not something that is designed as a preventative measure. Now, you can use aspirin to increase the fluidity of your blood, to thin your blood, and that seems to alleviate some of the symptoms, but it does not actually lower the viral count. When I talk
Right.
about lowering the viral count, I'm talking about helping your body to kill that sucker in yourself, okay? Okay, not to remove the symptoms of suffering
Right.
from it. So that's the Japanese mint oil is just something that personally I resonate with it really well. I just put this directly on my tongue. It's extremely strong. Yes, you can put it in hot water. Yes, you can drink it, but it's 100% pure essential oil, and I leave it as is. And just like it's like taking a teaspoonful of wasabi, if that tells you something. It like literally cleans all your pipes in your mouth and in your nose, you know. So, and it's very effective. You know, one of those small bottles, like $8 or whatever, lasts you for a year. You know, so all these things are very simple remedies, nothing fancy. Okay, it's always good, of course, you know, if you consult your doctor, if you consult a naturopathic doctor, if you don't resonate with sort of medical Western medicine, but you know, water, sunlight, vitamin C, and hot beverages, you know, drinking hot teas, that has never hurt anybody. So I feel very
No, and
confident in sharing this with
I
you.
prefer it too. You know, I
Yeah.
prefer it. Like, I mean, it's working for me. So, you know, it was
Yeah.
just a question because, you know, the ibuprofen like takes, um, you know, like the swallownness. Like, I think that's one of the side effects, right, of the COVID, that everything in your body gets swallowed, right? So,
But you
yeah,
gotta understand that every time you try to remove a symptom with a medication, you masking the problem. Okay, you're not
yeah,
addressing the problem.
yeah. No,
Okay.
and Bironia helps with that. Actually, I researched it. So, and
Yeah.
it worked beautifully. Like, I wasn't able to like fold my one of my fingers. Like, I couldn't like curl it. And after taking the
Interesting.
Veronia, like my fluidity on my movement on my fingers came back. So,
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you, thank you. Was a good question. Thank you.
All right, guys. Yes, this is the kind of discussion, community discussion that I'm hoping to achieve here. If this is well frequented and if we get enough response, you know, we can do this every week. Okay, but that's the kind of discussion that I really want to come up. Obviously, not just in regards to COVID, but that seemed to be sort of a timely thing to talk about this right now. And once more, thank you so much. Okay, wonderful to know that there are people out there who are interested in self-healing, and you know, with there's no specific agenda or anything with that, just, you know, sharing and spreading and giving people hope. All right. All right. Okay, well, love you guys, and hope to see you very, very soon. Okay, stay tuned, sign up for the link here, the email link, so that I can send you the date for the next self-healing community training call.